Okay, so on Learn Flow, there's a section for quiz. So what I will do is I'll just upload the remaining questions, and I will let us know when I've uploaded it and when we are supposed to do it to answer those questions. Yeah, so why I changed my mind was because I plan to kind of give you a quiz based on what we'll be doing in class today. Some of the things we'll be doing today, but I felt okay because it might still be kind of new to you. I might need time to revise it, and like though I will still include just few questions based on some things that we'll be doing today. But those ones will be quite straightforward because we'll discuss them in class, and I would emphasize those things. I would ensure that you know those ones, but the rest will be done on Learn Flow. Yeah. And before then, I would show us. I can also do it before the end of the class, if possible. I can show us how to navigate to get to where the quiz section is for us to do the quiz. Now, so how's everybody doing? Olufumlayo, Grace, and Timothy, I hope you had a wonderful week. And since the last time we met, hope everybody is feeling fine. Hope we are all healthy, and hope you've been staying safe. Hope there's no issue, there's no cause for concern. Or is there anything you like to share with us as a team? Anything. Let me hear from everybody. Can we put on our videos just for the next 5 minutes at least, so I can see our faces? Yeah. Good.
Okay. I'm fine. It's been a very busy week. So I started work, so it's been very hectic with kids and everything. So
You said you started what? Sorry.
I started a new job.
Oh wow.
So
that's interesting.
Very
that
busy.
was when? Last week or
the week before was just induction.
Okay.
Last week I started intense training. So I'm having 4 to 5 weeks intense training. So it's been very busy. The kids going back to school and everything. So that's why I didn't have much time to actually even go to manage. Last night I tried to stay up late last night just to go through a bit. I was just very tired. It's a very tiring week for me. So
yeah.
I'm here today. I'm tired.
I mean, really, it can be tiring. Yeah, but I know sincerely it can be, especially for women. But as much as possible, we just need to.
Because when you said you were watching, I was doing the same thing. I was trying to rush do this, do that, make sure everything before I start. I don't like interruption when I'm in the class. I want to.
I mean, for me, at times, even if it means stay, because this at times coming to teach in class, there are a lot of research that fine. It's one is having a practical experience, but it's not, because there are different industries, different companies, and some things might not even apply to the industry where I work. So I will still need to make a lot of research, ensure that whatever material whatever information I'm passing across to you is what is is relevant to the syllabus, because even if you go online to browse, you see a lot of things, and some of it might just be like, okay, yeah, this is it, but it's not even relevant to what's supposed to do. I mean, I have to just at times, or not even at times, all the time, I stay awake, at night. So doesn't mean I don't sleep. I sleep actually, yeah, fine. So I can sleep from maybe 8 to 1. Wake up around 1 again, do some things till 4. At times I can even stay till 5, sleep by 5 again, wake up by 7. So I mean, just in such a way that suits me, just for me to ensure that I'm meeting up with my deadlines and targets. So so what about Grace?
Yeah, my week is okay. I did my job that I need to do, and I did my others. Then I was able to go through yesterday, and then I woke up around 6 this morning again, going through my lesson just to get myself ready for today.
Yeah, that's good. Yes, that's good. That's our class rep. You need to be giving us that motivation, and again, in fact, since we've elected you as class rep, or we've appointed you as class rep, since then, we've not been seeing anything on the group, like, oh, okay, like reminders of, like, just give us kind of reminders, or
Okay, I
motivational
didn't know you want me
talks,
to be doing that.
inspirational
Okay.
talks, inspirational messages and the likes, like, okay, encouraging
Honestly, I
encouraging
wanted
your
to
team
do it,
members.
but I'm like, okay, it doesn't relate. It has to be school. I said schoolwork. Sorry. It
Well,
does-
I mean, so when I say motivational talks and the like, so it's just kind of words that would kind of encourage your
Yeah,
team members to ensure that they're always they keep
okay.
on striving, because it can be
it can be
when you're
over.
alone at times, it
Yeah.
can be discouraging, it can be tiring,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, I know.
because everybody is busy, there are a lot of things to be done,
Hmm.
and a lot of things,
Women things
a
never
lot of,
end.
yeah,
We
a lot
always
of
have things
things,
to
a
do.
lot of things are competing for our time. So
Mm-hmm.
even when you
Yeah.
just drop reminders, like, even if it's just like twice in a week, oh,
Okay.
let's maybe like a quote, they can also put that they should remember to go through the
To go
materials.
through our lesson.
Yes, it could just be
All right.
anything that would just kind of, it might not be straight that way and just say, oh, make sure you read your book, make sure but I mean, just to kind of
Don't worry.
make it to sound interesting. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just really good. Hi, Olufumlayo.
Hello,
Mm.
good morning.
Hi, Olufumlayo.
Good morning. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
good morning. Yeah. Hi,
Oh,
Jean. How was your week?
my week is, like Temitope said, it's only by God's grace. I can't.
Honestly.
It's by God's grace. You wanted Grace to encourage us. Who will encourage Grace?
No, we encourage each other.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Uh,
We will encourage each other, and
Encouraging each other.
I
we'll
can't
encourage each
remember.
other, and I will encourage Grace as well. So it's more like we're working as a team. Everybody will encourage each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
So Olufumlayo can
We need it
encourage
though.
Grace. Temitope can
We need it.
encourage Grace as well. So
All
yeah.
right. And then
Oh, God is a strength.
come
Yeah,
with,
because if not, we'll just be compiling it, and I mean, it
yeah,
doesn't worth it. It doesn't worth it if we've given it this much time, coming to
Mm.
class every 3 hours in a week, and when it's not time for the endpoint assessment, God forbid, actually, and we're not able to do well, so it doesn't, it's not.
that's
Is I mean, we would not also be happy about that. So it's really important we start
put
taking efforts,
ourselves.
making efforts now. Yeah. Okay, so not to take too much of our time, the last class we stopped at let me see, statutory adoption leave, right? Statutory adoption leave. Is that or where did we stop? Okay,
Yeah.
let me
Yeah, that's where we stopped here. Around
Yeah.
statutory here.
this one,
The adoption one.
the
Yeah.
adoption one. Okay,
Mhm, that's the one.
Yeah.
yeah. So did you talk about the adoption leave and pay as well?
I think so.
Oh, okay, okay, yes, yes. Adoption leave and pay, yes.
Did yeah.
All right. So, I said we should try and go through some stuff. So, were we able to go through? Do we have the time to? Let me just know if we did it.
To be honest, I think I was able to go through one. I didn't have time to go. I did only one.
Okay. What about others? Did you go through anything?
I did go through it, but you see, when your brain is like full and too funny, it is good. And honestly, I went through it on Monday last night, even this morning. But I take grace in God to hold on to whatever I'm listening to.
Yeah,
So
yeah, so yeah,
You're
yeah.
calling my name too much, you know.
yeah, because
You'll be
I
That's why
Grace.
we
You'll
need
be
you to be
paying money.
motivating us, because we need grace. We
Grace.
need grace
I'll be
a lot.
paying
me
money
I
and
Seriously.
say,
them a
I'm
lot.
sure that she calls your name. You charge her
I
more.
tell you that your name, God has given me to stay with me. It's by His grace that I'm alive,
I
We
so,
need
know.
it.
and
We need the grace
so
a lot, really.
if not for grace of God, I would have even pulled out, which is not something I love doing anyway. I hate
Yeah.
Mm.
that's something I not finish it, but it is great so because sometimes you feel like have you not actually involved yourself in something that is more beyond
More
you?
than you. Mm.
But we thank God. We
Yeah.
thank God.
Yeah. Yeah, it is well. We'll keep striving and keep
We'll keep
keep
going.
let's say persevering or
Going, yeah,
yes,
persevering.
yeah,
We keep going.
keep going, yeah.
Steps.
Okay, so we've talked about some statutory leave and pay. We did some last week. So quickly, let's just look at statutory maternity leave and pay. So it's similar to what we've done. And it's can you all see my slides? I didn't even ask that.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, good. So it's basically like I said, it's similar to the other leave and pay. And it's the type that is given to, like, an employee is entitled to paternity leave. An employee is entitled to 1 or 2 weeks, unlike the other ones that is like about 26, maybe about 52 weeks thereabouts. So for paternity leave, it must be taken at once. You can't separate it. You have to take the 1 week and the 2 weeks. So if you are taking the maternity leave now, then you have to continue from now until the next 1 week or the next 2 weeks. You can't spread it. And to qualify for statutory paternity leave, then that employee must be either the child's biological father, the child's
Adoption.
adopter, right, or the intended parent, and the child's mother's husband. I think I talked about this in the last class. Yeah. So
Yes.
yeah. So why it is so is because the what's it called, the person's father, or the child's father might not actually be alive, might be late, and there might be someone else that wants to kind of offer that assistance to assist the mother. So that person can be granted paternity leave, of course, with subject to answering some questions and submitting some documents that are actually necessary, um, that will be requested by the company. But what I'm trying to say here is that for you to actually be qualified for paternity leave at all, you need to fall into these three category. Not just anyone. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm the friend's father, and I want to assist the mother of the child. So I would love to go for paternity leave." And such a person will not be granted. So a person has to fall within this category, which is these three. So well, then the employee must also have been working for that employer for at least 26 continuous weeks, right? So before the employee can be entitled to paternity leave, he must have been working for the employer or for his employer for at least 26 continuous. So I said continuous. So all these things is very important for you to take note of this, because with MCQ questions, it can actually be very tricky. If you've done some exams before, that you see options that are very similar, and you'll be wondering, but it's 26. So they can, like now it's saying it has to be at least for 26 continuous weeks. And you could see in another option, you could say probably 26 weeks, but spread, in my 26 weeks, irrespective of the order. It might not really be at a go. It could be that probably you're working for the employer before. I've seen some people that, okay, they were working somewhere before for like about some months, let's say for instance 12 months, and they actually resigned, left, went elsewhere, and came back to that same company and continued. So we just need to take note that it has to be at least 26 continuous weeks by either the end of the 15th week by either the end of the 15th week. That is, that 26th week should be what? Equivalent to what? The end of the 15th week before the week of the due date. It's a bit technical. So I think what this is trying to say is, if you want to analyze it now, let's look at it this way. Or do we understand the statement, or do you want me to kind of expatiate? Okay, so what looking at these statements now, if you look at the end of the 15th week before the week of the due dates, because the due dates varies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but of course there will be a particular fixed due date, but it's just that the date that the person might give birth might be different from due dates. But of course, we already know what the due date is. From that due date, if you calculate it back to 15 weeks before, you understand? So if the due date is supposed to be, say for instance, April 30, from April 30 you count 15 weeks back. So at the end of that 15th week, after counting back, let's say that at the end of the 15th week, for instance, I'm not going to do the calculation now. For instance, counting this back is going. Let's say it's like about say January, sometime in January. So what this is saying is that that person that would be granted the paternity leave needs to have worked for at least 26 continuous weeks, such that as at the end of that 15th week in January, it's like it's like almost the same thing. It's as if that person as at the end of the 15th week rather, then that person must have worked for about 26 weeks as at that time. That's in January. So that's what they're just trying to like explain there. Let's just take note of that. I don't know if that example kind of explains this. Do we all understood the example I used? Saying someone's due date is, for instance, April 30. So we count 15 weeks back. Let's say sometimes in first week in January. Let's say January 7, for instance. And so which means that as at January 7, the employee that would be going for the employee that wants to be granted the paternity leave needs to have as at that January 7, it needs to have worked for about 26 weeks as at that time, because if not, it won't be granted the leave. Okay. So that's the first one is that it should have working for the employer at 26 week by the end of the 15th week before the week of the due date, or by the end of the week, that employee has been told that you have been matched with the child for adoption. So if an employee plans to adopt a child, so as at the end of the week, in at the week in which the employee is being told, in which he's been informed that he has been matched with the child that he wants to adopt or that intends to adopt. So at the end of that week, right, then that employee must have worked for at least 26 continuous weeks as at that time. So they just give us two different scenarios. That's the scenario of the one that is not adopting a child, and the scenario of the one that is adopting a child. So still under statutory paternity leave and pay. For statutory paternity pay, for an employee to statutory paternity pay for eligible employees is either 151.2 a week or 90% of their average weekly earnings, whichever is lower. Then tax and national insurance needs to be deducted. Like I said, any form of earnings that is being given by the employer to the employee will be subject to tax, both payee and national insurance. So what this is trying to say is we're talking about the pay now, that as long as it has been determined that such employee is eligible to paternity leave, then yeah, if the employee is eligible to paternity leave, then it needs to be paid by the employer. So how much is it going to be paid? Is the employee is going to be paid 151.2 pounds. That's 151 pounds, you know, 20 20p a week, or 90% of their average weekly earnings. We talked about average weekly earnings for even those that have irregular that gets like that gets paid irregularly. You don't have a fixed amount per week. So you look at, okay, total amount you get in a month, and look at the average. They have to be able to determine the average weekly earnings. And so when you look at 90% of the average weekly earnings and 151.2, whichever is lower is what the employee that is going for the paternity leave will get paid as paternity pay. And of course, tax will be deducted. So to qualify for statutory paternity pay, an employee must have worked for their employer for at least 26 continuous weeks before. I think this is also the same thing with it's the same requirements for both the same requirements for the eligibility for both statutory paternity leave and statutory paternity pay. So for an employee to be eligible to the paternity leave and the paternity pay, that's statutory, yeah. To be entitled to both, then he has to meet up with that requirement in terms of working for 20 to have worked for 26 weeks before the 15th week baby is due, and the end of the week the adoption agency matched the employee with the child. So I think let's just move to so I think in the last class I discussed these agency workers, and I just remembered, yeah, I gave you an assignment. I gave you an assignment. I just remembered that I also attached the assignment, the Word documents, to the WhatsApp group. I said we should find out what employment types have different rules for entitlement to statutory paternity pay. So let me see if I have this in the next slide. Okay, I don't have it. But we won't talk about that now because we have limited time, so we won't be discussing that now. We'll probably have another practical session or support session for that. That's talking about the assignments. Where is it? Okay, yeah. So these assessments, because for paternity pay, different employment types have their different rules. They have different rules in terms of their entitlements to statutory paternity pay. So I just give a brief example of the agency workers. So if you look at, if you can see my slide for the agency workers, it says you can treat an employer can treat agency workers as employees for payee, because there are some agency workers that don't have, most agency workers actually do not have the same, do not have the full do not have the same employment rights with the regular employee. There are still some things that are different. Though some things are common in terms of, okay, you need to be entitled to this, you need to have the employment, you need to have equality, what's it called? Equality rights, the rights to be heard, and the right not to be unfairly dismissed, and some other basic ones. But there are some things that are still kind of different. I think we did that in a few classes ago. So with agency workers, an employer can treat agency workers as employees for payee tax and class 1 national insurance contributions. So if an employer deducts payee tax and class 1 national insurance contributions from the agency workers' earnings, right? Then that employer will have to pay them statutory paternity pay if they satisfy those conditions that we've stated above in terms of them working for 26 continuous weeks and the like. So what this is trying to say is that, when we talked about agency workers, we said that for agency workers, the for agency workers, the way their tax is being deducted in terms of payee tax and in terms of payee and the national insurance, it's not the same way in which it's being deducted for the regular employee. So the agent or the intermediary have the way in which they treat their tax, you know. But I mean, as a payroll administrator, what you just need to know, and what we discussed about agency workers then was that, for instance, if you're a payroll administrator now, you work in a company whereby you have some agency workers. Of course, those agency workers will not be on the payroll because you're not the one paying them directly. So what I discussed then was that the company pays the agent an invoice, then the agent settles the agency workers. So, we discussed about deemed workers when we talk about some deemed workers and those people that they are those workers that their tax are not does not is not being deducted via the payroll. So, but what this is trying to say under the statutory paternity leave is that if you have a situation whereby um an employer treats agency workers, or maybe a situation whereby an employer still, despite the fact that they're agency workers, but they still, still from the employee earnings, they still deduct payee tax and class one national insurance contributions. Then such an employee, if such an employee now decides to go for paternity leave, or wants to go for paternity leave, then such a person is entitled to leave and pay as long as it meets up with the requirements, because it's an agency worker, yes, but you deduct payee and national insurance from the agency worker. So you need to also note that employee will be entitled to what pay, paternity leave and pay. So what else do we have to say here? Yeah, so under the agency worker as well, with agency workers, it's not the usual way employee works. And I'm looking for the best way to explain this. So now, if you look at this second paragraph under agency workers, it says that the agency workers can still get the statutory paternity pay even if the employer did not have work to offer them, or offer them work, but the employee was unavailable because of sickness, injury, paternity, maternity leave, and the likes. What is trying to say is that, okay, so even if that employer, that particular point in time, there was no work, or there was no activity, and because of that, the agency worker could not do anything, or probably the agency worker could not work as a result of any form of injury or sickness. That's not that doesn't put the worker at a disadvantage. That worker is still going to be what? Is still going to be entitled to leave, and those weeks will still be counted as part of the weeks that makes up the 26 weeks. So then I now gave an assignment, and I said that we should find out, you know, I mean, there are different type of employment types. We have this, we have, I think the material, I gave you a list of the ones I want you to, yeah, I gave you a list. Let me see if I have it here. Yeah, so the different employment types we talked about agency workers. So we have agricultural workers, we have NHS employees, teachers, employee, can if that directors. So there are I gave it like about 9 or so. But at least, if you look at the ones that we are quite familiar with, we can look at the NHS employees, can look at okay, directors, employee that has more than one employer, and just kind of research to just know more about it. I only picked the one that is um that is common, which is the agency workers. Then like the NHS employees as well. Because like we know we have a lot of NHS employees, so we can also research on that. The rest might just be for our own, just to broaden our knowledge here. But I think it would be good for us to research about the NHS employees and understand how the statutory paternity leave and pay, how the way it's been structured, or how it's being treated in that industry. So then the next one is statutory shared paternity leave and pay. So this is also similar to what we've been doing before, but it's just some just a slight difference actually. So to be eligible for shared parental, sorry, I'm coming. I think oh, okay. There's just a, I'm going to adjust this slide. So it's supposed to be statutory shared parental leave and pay, not paternity. Yeah. So let's take notes. But is actually correct on the material. It's also probably where I was when I was doing the slides. I mistakenly put paternity. It's supposed to be statutory because we've done paternity already. So it's statutory shared parental leave and pay. So is that clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's fine. So if you look at this, mostly we've just been talking about in terms of the leave and pay, we've been talking about, okay, what are those that are eligible, what are the requirements that need to be fulfilled before one will be entitled to the leave and the pay. So those are things we just need to note, as a payroll administrator. Okay, you want to go, someone has requested to go on this particular leave, that paternity, adoption, or this. Okay, so let's look at the history of the employee. Let's look at his records. How long has he been working? Does he meet up to the requirements? This is that. Does he have necessary documents to evidence that truly he needs to go for a paternity leave, or this that? So those are the things we need to take note of. So here, under statutory shared paternity leave and pay, they said to be eligible for this, for the SPL, that's in terms of the shared parental leave, be eligible for this, and also the shared parental pay. Both parents must share responsibility for the child at birth, and both parents must meet work and pay criteria. So these are different depending on which parents want to use the shared parental leave and pay. So it can either be, okay, be either the father or the mother. So depending on who wants to use the leave. So if you look at it, an employer is not eligible. An employee rather is not eligible if the employee started sharing the responsibility for the child after the child was born. So, like we've seen, we've mentioned the eligibility criteria. The first thing is that, for any of the parents to be eligible for the shared parental leave and pay, then both parents must share the responsibility for the child at birth. Or if you're just notifying, or you just mention, or if it's just coming to um or it's just been known that they started sharing the responsibility after the child was born, then such employee will not be eligible. And also, this is in terms of the payment, it's similar to what we've done in the past, saying that the rates, the statutory shared statutory shared parental leave and parental leave, statutory shared parental pay rather, is paid at the rate of 151 pounds 20p a week, or 90% of the employee's average weekly earnings, whichever is lower. So at least by now we should be familiar with this amount, 151, and either 151 rather, or 90% of the average weekly earnings. So this is similar in this is the same thing with maternity, paternity, and adoption, then shared parental leave or shared parental pay. But we say that with maternity pay is slightly different in terms of, for the first 6 weeks, they are being paid a different amount of money. Then subsequently, that's after 6 weeks or for the next I think 30 something 33 weeks, then they'll be paid this amount of money, this 151 or 90%, whichever is lower. I think we have an example here. So a woman decides to start her maternity leave 4 weeks before the due date, and gives notice that she will start statutory and gives notice that she will start the SPL from 10 weeks after the birth, taking a total of 14 weeks maternity leave. Now she normally earns £200 a week. She paid £180. She's paid £180 rather, 90% of average weekly earnings as what as SMP for the first 6 weeks of maternity leave. Then 151.2 a week for the next 8 weeks. Once she goes on to SPL, she's still paid 151.2 a week. Oh, okay. So let's analyze this together, because since I haven't taken my time to analyze it as well. So I think this is trying to, we are talking about the shared parental leave and pay. So take note, it's parental leave, not paternity leave. So this is just an illustration of the pay that relates to the shared parental pay. So now, if you let's look at the example again. That a woman decides to start a maternity leave 4 weeks before the due date, and gives notice that she will start the statutory paternity leave from 10 weeks after the birth. Like I said, paternity leave, either the woman or the man can decide to, they can switch and decide to change it. It could be that the woman, like I said, is maybe, I don't want to say she's a breadwinner, probably she's earning more, and she's earning more on her job, and the husband is, or the partner is earning less. So it could be that after some weeks he might want to go back to work, and wants the man to take over and continue taking care of the baby. So if after if you look at this example now, let me see. If you look at this example now, it says that 4 weeks before her due date, she took a maternity leave 4 weeks before her due date, and she now gave the notice that she will start a paternity leave from 10 weeks after birth, right? So it means that after giving birth, she still spent another 10 weeks before she started the paternity leave. Now, if she took 4 weeks before if she went on leave 4 weeks before her due date, plus the 10 weeks she took after giving birth, that's like 14 weeks. So taking a total of 14 weeks maternity leave. I don't know if you are following this example. So I'll just explain again, just to summarize. A woman is going for maternity leave. She started her leave 4 weeks before she was due, and after she gave birth, she spent another 10 weeks. So in total, she took a maternity leave of 14 weeks, right?
Yes.
And now we're told again that she gave the notice that she will start SPL, which is paternity leave, from 10 weeks after the birth. So it means after her maternity leave of 14 weeks, then she wants to start paternity leave. Now we're told that she normally ends.
Sorry, Cafe. Is it paternity leave or parental leave?
Parental.
You were using the word paternity. It should be parental, I think.
Oh, sorry about that, please. So I'm supposed to be using the word. Let me see. She's paid this at SP for the first. When she's going to. Okay, so it is paternity leave. I'm going to explain to you. it's shared parental leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the just this subtopic that I'm talking about is statutory shared parental leave and pay. But this example is trying to trying to
Talk
explain
about
a situation.
paternity. Yeah.
Sorry?
I consider that one. That one is SPL, not SHPL.
Yeah,
People.
so yes. So this because we
Sorry,
are
oh,
done.
sorry,
I'm
before
coming.
you go further, forgive me. I
Okay.
don't agree with that, though, because even on top of your slide, shared parental leave is abbreviated as SPL. And the example we are giving at the bottom is actually for what is explained on top of the slide. So that SPL should be parental leave. They are talking about that the woman she started as statutory parental leave from 10 weeks after the birth. I think, that is what I get from this slide.
Okay. All right.
Yes, at the
So
bottom, at the top. Yeah, that's true.
okay. So I think the issue is just probably because I didn't write it out in full, you know. So I think that's what is probably causing the confusion for me really, because this example itself, it's an example that I extracted from, I think, from the HMRC's website. Yeah. So this example is under the shared um
Parental.
is um is under this shared parental leave rather. So I guess the confusion with it was because I didn't write it out in the full, and on the slide actually, there's a mix up in terms of the parental and the paternity. So I guess probably that's why I'm mixing it up. So sorry about that. So I need to adjust this slide and change it back to statutory shared parental leave and not paternity leave. So thanks for the correction, Olufemilayo. Yeah, thanks, Grace as well. Okay, so
Yeah.
now let's go back to the example. So where did we stop? So now we're talking about the SPL now. That's the shared parental leave, right?
Okay.
So like I said that she has taken a total of 15 weeks maternity leave. Then um
40.
she gave a notice to take the SPO, that's the statutory, the shared parental leave, right? After 10 weeks after birth. Now, she normally earns 200 a week, right?
Yes.
So she's paid and she's paid what 180. She was paid
Yeah.
180 pounds. Now, how was this calculated? That
That's
was
the
the,
90%.
yeah. So like I said, it's yeah, either this or this. So that's 90% of average weekly earnings. Now, um, she's paid 90% of her average weekly earnings as statutory maternity pay for the first 6 weeks of her maternity leave. Then now, I also want you to note that what this example is trying to achieve is to let you understand how the payment is being calculated when someone that is going on maternity leave decides to go on the parental leave, at the same time or at some point in time. And the reason is because I mentioned it earlier that if you look at these payments, if you look at the pay, the statutory pay for all the what's it called, all the ones we've been discussing in terms of the paternity, maternity, adoption, and the like. So if you look at the pay, they are similar, or the pay are even the same except for the maternity leave. So that's why they decided to use the example here. No, so how is the maternity leave different? Is different, just slightly different, because for the first 6 weeks, they are being paid 90%. For the first 6 weeks, they are being paid 90% of their earnings. But after the first 6 weeks, they are being paid either 90%, or they are being paid the lower of 90% of their earnings, or 151.2. So that's why they're giving this example here, that for the first 6 weeks, that woman is on maternity leave. She's taking for 14 weeks maternity leave. Then after 14 weeks, she will start her SPL, which is the parental leave. For the first 6 weeks, she would earn what? She would earn 180 on a weekly basis. That's it, because the example here is that our weekly pay is 200. So she'll be getting 180 for the next 6 weeks. Now, then half from the where is it? Okay, now from 14 weeks, 6 weeks is gone. Then we have 8 weeks left. So now for the next 8 weeks, she's going to get what? She's going to get 151.20. Yeah. So once she now moves to SPL, that's the parental leave, you still continue to pay that. That's the same amount that is being paid to anyone that is going on salary, that's going on shared parental leave. I don't know if that is clear. So is this example clear, or do you want me to just summarize it?
No, okay. For me, it's okay.
It's clear.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's clear. Okay, all right, that's fine. So now looking at the apprenticeship levy, we did this some classes, few classes back here, but there are just some relevant aspects I want us to take note of. That's why I decided to give us more notes on this. So we've talked about it before, and we've talked about the threshold in terms of those that are supposed to be paying the apprenticeship levy. It's paid by UK employers. So all UK employers whose annual bill is up to 3 million. So anyone that pays up to 3 million per annum and above are required to pay the apprenticeship levy, and that the percentage in which an employer needs to pay is 0.5% of their annual bill. So now, what are the benefits that an employer have, or what are the benefits to an employer that pays the apprenticeship levy? So as an employer, you get some benefits, such that you will even get benefits that is beyond the money that is even that is beyond the apprenticeship levy that is being paid, because the government would usually reward employees. So there is this account that is called digital apprenticeship service account. So for some of the big companies that some of the big companies that actually employ apprentice, they have an arrangement, or they have a way of doing that, of employing apprentices. That anything that has to do with apprentice, they have an account for it. They have an account with the government for it. So that account is called digital apprenticeship service account. So the government will apply a 10% monthly top up for any funds that goes into that account. So usually the funds the funds are being used for training, the apprentice, and any other activity that needs to be done on behalf of the apprentice, or the apprentice needs to go through. So having said that, in terms of payment and reporting this amount, that's the apprenticeship levy to HMRC. So, like I said, that this amount is being paid on a monthly basis, and we did the calculation then. I hope we all had time to go through that calculation. I sent us the Excel, the spreadsheet. I completed the calculation and sent it to us. So I hope we had time to. I hope we've actually gone through the calculation. It's really important for us to do that. So looking at the payment and reporting aspects of this levy, at the start of each tax year, of course in UK, the tax year starts from April. So an employer will have to tell HMRC on a monthly each month, from April down to March, every month that way, we need to tell HMRC how much apprenticeship levy is owed. So talk about this, the calculation and the like. So I don't think we should talk so much on that. Yeah. So for companies that their earnings, is below 3 million. So or let me put it this way. Now, for a company that has been reporting the apprenticeship levy to HMRC before, that okay, it's been determined that this a particular company pays up to 3 million bill per annum, and such a company has been reporting the apprenticeship levy, or has been paying and reporting this money, this levy, to HMRC. So if at any point the company's earnings, or the company's annual pay bill falls below 3 million, the company will still need to report to HMRC and let them know that, oh, okay, like this is my this was the annual pay bill. It's actually not up to 3 million. Yeah, you still need to report it, so irrespective of whether you'll be paying that amount or not. So that's the aspect of payment and reporting.
Sorry, I have a question before.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this benefits that you said the government gives to companies. So if their bill or their pay is less than 3 million, let's say for instance, do they still get that 10% that the government gives to them as well? Top up.
No, they don't get it. So it's only the benefit is only for
3 million
for employers that it's only for the employers that pays this levy. Of course, there will definitely be a difference between those that are paying and those that are not paying. There will be some form of incentives, just to encourage
Okay.
them to, so it's
Yeah.
just for those that are paying
Good.
the levy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now how to report this how does does the company report the apprenticeship levy? So you're wondering, so why are we talking about the apprenticeship levy? How does it relate to you as a payroll administrator? So this apprenticeship levy would usually go through the payroll process as well. So through the payroll process, with the employment payment summary, the submission was we talked about FPS, full payment submission, that will include um all the information of the employee, either they were paid in that pay period or not. If you can still remember, we did that full payment submission, and we did EPS, that's employer payment summary rather, that if there's any other information, that is different from the information that was submitted um on the FPS. It could be another thing. It could be that the company wants to claim back some money or expenses and the likes. It could be any other thing, as long as the company wants to inform HMRC about that thing, or maybe they, like most times, used to claim back. So in such situation, the EPS instead of the FPS will be used to report such information to HMRC. So now one of the uses of the EPS, the employment payment summary, is that it is used to also report what's the apprenticeship levy. So if you look at the slides now, I've explained here that through the payroll process, right? The employment payment summary. Oh, okay, sorry. The apprenticeship levy is reported, right? It's reported to HMRC through using the payroll process, using the employment payment summary, and the submission must include first the amount of apprenticeship levy that company owe in the current tax year to date. Then secondly, the amount of the annual apprenticeship levy allowance allocated to the payee scheme. So we talked about the this when we did the calculation. We talked about the cumulative amount that the way the calculation is being done. You do it in a cumulative way. Then you determine the difference between what has been paid the last time, probably what has been paid last month, and what is supposed to be paid this month. The difference is what will be reported to HMRC. So now, what this is just trying to say is that the employment payment summary is used to report the apprenticeship levy to HMRC, and on that document, you need to have what are the important things that need to be there. The amount of the apprenticeship levy that you owe, that the company owe, right, to date in the current tax year needs to be included, like we did the last time. When we did the calculation, we did the cumulative amount of them, cumulative apprenticeship this thing, the levy, and also on that EPS on the documents, the amount of the annual apprenticeship levy allowance, needs to also be included. We did the allowance that government has there's an allowance of 0. It's an allowance of 15,000 pounds. If you can still remember this. And that allowance is used to net off the apprenticeship levy that has been calculated for that period. So whatever you have left is what will be paid as levy. I hope we still remember all this.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So there's an apprenticeship levy allowance. I think that what I've just mentioned, which is the annual discount of 15,000. And so for employers who are not connected to another company or charity, the allowance is split equally over 12 months. But I don't want to leave that part out. Not sure I really made much research on this. So for employers who aren't connected to another company, I'm not sure I got the statement right. So let's just leave that out. So so employers who are connected must decide what proportion of the allowance each employer in the group will be entitled to, which remains in place. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I understand what this is. I remember what this is trying to say. But probably when we look at this example, would get it better. So to calculate the amount of apprenticeship levy that a company owe, we did something similar to this. So if the apprenticeship levy is just okay, then I'll just use this one I'll just use this part to revise what we did in the last class. If the apprenticeship levy is the apprenticeship levy is actually 0.5%. We know that of the employer's annual pay bill. So for annual pay bill of 3 million, then the levy would be what 15,000, right? And we know that there's an allowance, right, which is 15,000 as well. So this will definitely net off this amount, right? So, but if let me see the other example. Yeah, pay bill. Okay, so the levy would be 15,000, meaning the allowance would cover it. However, you will still need to report it. Okay, we've mentioned this earlier that because the allowance would net off the levy that we've calculated, then that would be zero. But you still need to still need to report this amount, irrespective of whether there's an amount for you to pay or not. And for this last part is just talking about the calculation we did as well. As to calculate for monthly basis, which we did. So I don't want to go deeply into that. I already just included on the slide for a form of reminder. And how to pay the levy, right? Okay, so reporting through the payroll process. Okay, yeah, we've said that already, and it's paid. So just the same way you will pay, just the same way an employer pays the national insurance. There's employer national insurance on behalf of the employee as well. So just the same way the employer pays the national insurance or any form of payee tax each month, that's the same way. That's the same way the employer would also pay the levy, because it's reported through the payroll. So definitely you need to also pay it on a month. So that's even the essence of calculating it on a monthly basis, because we need to be reporting it on a monthly basis. So now we would look at principles of construction industry scheme. So if you look at the construction industry as a whole, it's another industry. It's another big industry on its own, and a lot of, when it comes to tax, there are a lot of things that we need to be aware as a payroll administrator. So with the construction industry, I mean, um there are people that actually specialize in that aspect. You see some companies that specialize in construction that specialize in construction industry scheme payroll, so CIS payrolling, because it's a big industry, and they have a different way of running their payroll. It's different from the payee, the way the payee is being done. So it could be that a company could have employees that pays their taxes through via the payee system, and also have employees that will need to pay their, I won't need to say employees, or let's say subcontractors, yeah, so of course, if a company which will be referred to as a contractor have subcontractors, then the subcontractors would need to pay taxes through the CIS payroll. Um, before I move further, let me just ask us if we have an idea of the how the construction industry scheme works. What have we heard about it in the past? You know, anything
No,
that,
not
that
that. No, not
okay,
any idea.
No, right.
okay, okay, all right, that's fine. So, like I said, with the construction industry, they have their own payroll system. So we'll be looking at this now. Actually, the construction industry scheme, was devised to limit the amount of tax that is, lost as a result of subcontractors in the construction industry under declaring their. So the thing is that in the construction industry, because people, like most of the workers that belong to that category kind of work as self-employed. They are not really like employees. They're kind of okay. They work for themselves. And in order to reduce the rate at which HMRC loses tax from these people, the rate at which HMRC are not kind of, or the rate at which these subcontractors or those in the construction industry, the rate at which they kind of evade tax, government tax, then government brought about the construction industry scheme, to ensure that how everybody that is working in the construction industry pays their taxes. They don't kind of hide and run away from paying taxes, because as long as they actually live in the UK, then they need to be paying taxes as well. So that's the sense of this construction industry scheme, to ensure that people don't underpay tax or fail to pay tax at all. Yeah, Olufumlayo, do you want to say something?
Um, just not that I know much about it, but just to buttress what you are saying,
Okay.
from my knowledge at work, they actually, like you rightly said, apart from, in most cases, most of them are self-employed,
Yeah.
and apart from you making normal self-assessment registration, they have another, like you rightly said, the CIS, and it is actually called CISA, SISR, construction industry scheme registration. They have a separate registration that must be done, that like I confirmed every day, when I come across any construction case. So yeah, I don't know why that is, but whatever it is, construction industry scheme have a different and in an additional, not a different, additional registration scheme to ensure that, like you rightly said, they don't evade tax and everything they do is correctly noted and registered on their on HMRC data. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it exactly. Yeah, you are right. I mean, so it's a very when it comes to construction industry scheme, actually, it's a very wide, I mean, wide topic. But I've just tried to summarize as much as I can because there are a lot of information to note. But it's good to also read more on this to learn more about it and how I mean so for the part that relates to payroll that we need to know as payroll administrator, and I'll ensure that I give us enough information as much as possible. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Tim. Olufumilaya. Thanks for that information. Okay. So like I said, I already explained the purpose of this the construction industry scheme. So I'll just be using CIS going forward. And so the way tax is being deducted when it comes to the construction industry, the way the scheme operates, it operates in such a way that it withholds tax at the at source point of making the contract payments. So and this is done to ensure that, like I said, to reduce any risk of default by the subcontractor. So HMRC has made it compulsory, for contractors to ensure that they kind of deduct tax from the payments they would make to subcontractors. So they need to deduct the tax before making that payment to subcontractors. And there's Mm, as a subcontractor, they need to register with HMRC, and when they are registering, they can either register as they can either register with HMRC to receive payments in gross, or to receive payments net. That's a net. That's after deducting tax. So for the subcontractor that have registered with HMRC to receive payments in gross, then the 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 contractor would not deduct payments from such subcontractors, right? So the subcontractor would definitely have another like means of remitting their tax to the government. To be because if they actually register as to be receiving payments from the contractors in gross, then definitely there would be another means of the subcontractor to report his to make returns to HMRC. It could be through self-assessment or other means, but that is, like I I'm not really giving much information on that here, because that does not really relate to, like, as long as that is not even going through the payroll, it's not going through the construction industry payroll as well. So then also there are the construction industry scheme has been existing for a while, but the revised scheme came into operation in April 2007, 6th of April 2007. And this revised scheme, the new scheme, sets out the rules for how payments to subcontractors must be made by the contractors. And yeah, so the government just set out three broad aims. Like for the revised scheme, that's the CIS scheme, the construction investment scheme. Government set out three broad aims. And the first one is to reduce the regulatory burden on the construction businesses. The second one is to improve the level of compliance by those businesses with their tax obligations, and to help them to ensure that the correct employment status, to help them ensure the correct employment status for their workers. So let me say tax obligations. Okay. So I think I'll come back to this slide, but let me just quickly let me see if I have the other one here that I wanted to talk about. Okay, so with this construction industry scheme, really, I have a lot of information that I've put here, but see if I can just summarize it so that we can just read it up on our own, really. um, so briefly, I just explained, try and just explain what construction activities means. Yeah, so construction operations, there are activities that are carried, any activity that is carried out in UK in construction of, or either you are just constructing like maybe a new construction, or making changes to a temporary or permanent building or structure, and any preparatory activity that is being done, follow that is being done flowing from these activities. So the CIS, the construction industry scheme, it applies to contractors and subcontractors in the construction industry. Of course, like we all know, in the construction, when we talk about the construction industry, is that we have contractors and subcontractors. I think there are other parties to it as well. There's been, I can't remember what they're being called, but probably for those that, if you want to, like, if in case you just want to read more, maybe probably you can, there are things that you might also see. But for the purpose of what we are doing, these are things that are relevant. So the CIS applies to contractors and subcontractors in the construction industry. So now, how do you know if you're a contractor or a subcontractor? So if you have like subcontractors working, um, if you have subcontractors of your own, like those that are working for you, and you spend over 1 million on construction in any 3-year period, then you qualify as a contractor. Because of course you have like so many contractors, and in terms of when you look at the regulatory aspects, in terms of reporting the taxes and the likes, for you to qualify as a contractor, then you have to have your own subcontractors, like your own, those that actually work for you, subcontractors, or you spend over 1 million on construction. That's 1 million pounds. Yeah, spend over 1 million pounds on construction in any 3-year period. Um, so such a person qualifies as a contractor. Then to now look at where subcontractor is. So if someone completes his work, on a project under the employment of a contractor, then such a person is a subcontractor. So how does this scheme applies to contractors? What are the things we need to note as a contractor? And so it could be that as a payroll administrator, you are working in the construction industry. So what are the things you need to note, or what are the things the employer needs to note? So under the scheme, that's under the CIS, contractors deduct money from payments that are due to be made to contractors. So the amount that is deducted from these payments before they are made is paid to HMRC, and the amount is credited to the subcontractor's tax and national insurance account with HMRC. So like I said, they don't operate the payee system just as we operate it for the regular employees. So the obligation to deduct tax, from contract payments lies on the contractor, and the contractors are required to register for the CIS. So as long as you've determined, it's been determined that this person qualifies to be a contractor, then it means that you need to register under the construction industry scheme. Now, the subcontractors do not have to register. It's not compulsory for them to register, but it's compulsory for the contractors to register. So the subcontractors do not have to register, but there can be a form of advantage or benefit for them if they register. So for instance, if they don't register, right? Deductions are withheld at a higher rate. By the time the contractor will deduct the payment, deduct the tax rather from their payments before they are being paid, it's deducted at a higher rate compared to when they are registered. So if they are registered, then it would be um it will be deducted at a lower rate. So, but it's actually not compulsory for them to register. So it's like an optional thing. Um, okay, now so exceptions for the contractors in terms of registering um with the CIS. So if work is paid for, by a charity or a trust or a governing body or head of a maintained school on behalf of the local education authority, then the CIS does not apply. So if the work is on the subcontractor's own property, and that property worth less than £1,000, that's after deducting, excluding materials, not considering the cost of materials, then he or she must call the CIS helpline to get an exemption. So now what this is trying to say, this is trying to talk about okay, let me just read everything, so I'll explain I'll explain everything together. With regards to a deemed contractor paying for work on property for their own business use, CIS does not apply. The requirements to call the CIS helpline for an exemption also apply to the okay. Now, so what it's trying to say is that in terms of like when is a contractor exempted from registering for the CIS. So in a situation whereby okay, it's the construction has to do with um the construction work is being paid for by a charity organization or a governing body. If it has to do with charity organization or governing body, then in that situation the CIS does not apply. And if the work if you look at the subcontractor, if that work that is being done is on the subcontractor's own property, if it is for that subcontractor himself, if that work is being done on the person's property himself, and that work worth less than £1,000, that's after you've excluded the cost of materials and the likes. You won't consider the cost of materials. If that work worth £1,000, then such a subcontractor can actually like contact HMRC to get an exemption from CIS. Then the another instance here is with regard to a deemed contractor. So when you use the word deemed, it's more of like okay, someone that is how do I explain deemed? Someone that is deemed or that is close to being a contractor. When we talk about deemed workers, we're like okay, someone that is also referred to as worker, or if you look at it, have it does not really share or have all the qualities of an employee or all the rights of an employee, or at least you just refer to them as deemed workers. So just like this, like deemed contractor. So with regard to a deemed contractor paying for work, with regard to a deemed contractor paying for work on property that is not for sale or rent, but it's for their own business use, CIS does not apply. In that situation, such a contractor can also um sorry, excuse me. Such a contractor can also contact HMRC to get an exemption. And for subcontractor, okay, so now for subcontractors, for the CIS rule to apply to subcontractor, the subcontractor must not be employed by the contractor. So, one of the reasons the construction industry scheme is like another kind of a scheme entirely on its own. It's different from the pay system. Is because the way the those that work in the construction industry, because of the nature of their employment. So like Olufumlayo said earlier, that they are kind of not really treated as employees per se. So they kind of work for themselves, and they are self-employed. Um, so I think at some point in time, might not be today, so I would try and look at the link between self-employed and this um and subcontractors, because we have the self-employed is the return, they submit their returns via the submit sorry, excuse me please, they submit their returns via this by the self-assessment. Yeah. So for those that are working for the subcontractors as well, they are also self-employed. I think they also they also remit their tax by through the self-assessment as well. But the link between having to remit their tax as self-assessment and also um paying tax by this scheme, because I said that the contractor will need to deduct payments at source before making the payment to subcontractor. So the relationship, or how everything linked, and why they pay tax by the self-assessment, and this is what I would have to explain, probably in maybe during the practical section or so. Olufumlayo, do you want to make any contribution?
I just felt, from my little understanding, the starting point for any self-employed worker is to register at for self-assessment. And if you now identify yourself as a construction person in whatever capacity, because from my understanding, when you want to register, you have to actually identify yourself. Like you rightly said, it could be you can be a contractor, or you can register as a construction worker. Maybe you are a builder, plumber. That it has to come under such category. You can't just say you are a contractor, you want to register as CIS. But if you want to be a member of a CIS, once you register, it's just that I think they have a particular rule. The way they calculate, they still treat them as self-employment worker, but because they have another scheme due to their
Nature of the industry.
nature of their job, they have a specific rule to the calculation of their own the payment they make back
Tax.
to HMRC. Yeah, I don't think there is anything special in that, but they have a particular a rule which guides the way they remit money,
Yeah,
because
tax.
unlike self-employed, as a self-employed worker, you just submit your tax return and you get charged or billed as a result of your profit. But for them, considering that some of the contractors or six scheme, they are like contractor and they pay to subcontractors. Or if you're a contractor and you register for CIS, there is a way they calculate your own payment. But if you are a subcontractor who registered for CIS as a subcontractor, it's a benefit for them, because they don't charge them higher, they don't use higher rates to charge them. But
Yeah.
it's not a case of how do I put it? But I guess it's just because of the way they make the payment in their industry. So,
Okay.
like you rightly said earlier, HMRC wants to ensure that they don't dodge tax and they don't pay wrongly. So they have that separate scheme for them, but they still use every other self-assessment scheme, rule, and policy to manage their accounts.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Olufumlayo, for sharing that. Yeah, that's really good. So because like I said, that they have a way of paying their taxes, and why I was particular of personally of making more research about it, because of course I am not in the construction industry, but um um with the part that actually relates to the payroll, from my research, I see that okay, yeah, they have been for the contractor, deducts the taxes and the NI from the payment to subcontractor. They deduct it before making the payments. And at the same time, even those subcontractors, they still make, because as self-employed, they still kind of um, they still kind of submit their own returns as well by the self-assessments, because they're self-employed. That's why I was now wondering, okay, so if they are doing this and I know that why they are paying both taxes in terms of submitting their doing their self-assessment and also paying taxes via the CIS scheme is definitely because of the nature of the industry. I was just saying that I just need to. I personally still want to make more research on it and kind of understand the industry very well to know, you know, to understand the nature of the industry in a better way and see reasons why they still need to pay this. I know that definitely they are doing that, but just to understand more on it. It's something that we can also research on. I was just saying, yeah. So yeah, so that's fine. Um. No, we need to. Let me just finish this part and let me finish the CIS. Let me finish the CIS, then we'll go for break. I don't want to take the CIS to the next session. Okay, so for the for subcontractor, what was I explaining? I said that the CIS rule for the CIS rule to apply. I think for also mentioned some things around this as well. For the CIS rule to apply to the subcontractor must not be employed. That's what I was explaining before. Must not be employed by the contractor, because is the employment status, is a kind of a contentious, issue when it comes to tax. Everybody has to know what the employment status is. Are you self-employed? Are you this? Are you that? So even in the construction industry, it's also the same thing. They kind of have their own different, legislation, but the as a contractor, it's the responsibility of the contractor to be able to determine, okay, whether this person that is working for, whether the subcontractor, that is the person working for him, whether is employed or not, because just as in any other industry, as we have treatment for a different treatment for those that are employed and those that are self-employed. So we need to know, as a payroll administrator, we need to know that, in this company we're working here, this person is self-employed, he's not going to be on the payroll. We'll pay him fine, but he's not going to be on the payroll because he does his taxes by himself. But for an employee, we put him on the payroll. Same thing in the industry as well, in the construction industry. The difference between someone that is a contractor and is employed, and someone that is a subcontractor and is employed, then a subcontractor that is unemployed, probably self-employed. And so if you happen to work in the construction industry sector, it's something you also need to take note of, difference between, okay, if this subcontractor is employed, or if he's self-employed. And so what this is saying is that this construction industry scheme, you know, it's it does not apply to subcontractor that is employed by the contractor. So if the worker is considered to be employed by the contractor, then the worker should be placed on the payroll, and the income tax, the income tax and the national insurance contributions will be deducted by pay as you earn, or not considered to be what the contractor's employee, then the CI rule applies. So what this is saying technically is that if you are employed, if you are a subcontractor, yes, fine, but you are kind of still employed by the contractor. Then such a person will be treated as an employee, and his taxes will be deducted by the usual payee, system. That's by the usual payroll system. But if the person is considered not to be an employee, probably self-employed, then the CIS rules, that's the construction industry scheme rules, apply to such subcontractor. And Then in this situation whereby the subcontractor is not employed, if he's not an employee of the contractor, then it's the responsibility of the contractor, to determine or to verify the payment status of the subcontractor. So the payment status he has to verify. So in terms of verifying, it has its own process as well that the employer will need to go through. So in terms of the status, like I said, that when the subcontractor is registering, the subcontractor can decide to register and can decide not to register. But compulsorily, the contractor must register. As long as the contractor has determined that he qualifies to be a contractor, he must register for CIS with HMRC. Subcontractor is not compulsory, but when the subcontractor registers, there are benefits in terms of the payments that will be deducted. So now, here I mentioned that if the employee, or if the subcontractor is not an employee, then the contractor will need to determine the payment status of that subcontractor that is not an employee. Why? So that the contractor will know how to deduct the taxes from that subcontractor. So now, in terms of the status, it could be in three different. Let me see. Sorry, please hold on. Okay, so in terms of the payment status, it will come in different forms. It could be that the subcontractor, registered with HMRC, for gross payment. So if you look at this now, payments by a contractor to a subcontractor will either be made in three different ways. The first one is in gross, that is without deduction of tax. And this situation is a situation whereby the subcontractor is registered for gross payments with HMRC. So the second situation is payment will be made to subcontractor after deduction of tax as 20%. Now, this situation is a situation whereby the subcontractor is registered for deduction with HMRC. And the third situation is a situation whereby the third one is payments to the subcontractor after deduction of tax as 30%. And this is a situation whereby the subcontractor is not registered. Now, note there are three situations: gross after deduction of tax at 20%, after deduction of tax at 30%. So the person the contractor making the payments needs to know the status of that particular subcontractor if the subcontractor is not employed. So that's what we mentioned earlier, that if subcontractor is registered with HMRC, right? If you look at this number 2 now, I said deduction is at 20% if the subcontractor is registered for deduction, have you? But number 3 is that if the subcontractor is not registered, then the contractor will deduct the taxes at the rate of what? 30%. So that's just let's just take note of three these three payment status. So okay. CIS payment, this construction, okay, CIS payments to subcontractor. I'll just quickly read through so that we'll not waste too much time because of time. So the rate of deduction depends on the behavior of the subcontractor. So to be registered for gross payments, so this part, it's just like an explanation of what I have here. I already said it earlier, so I'll just read through. I'll not really explain too much on it. So to be registered for gross payments, a subcontractor must satisfy the business test, right? Must satisfy three things. To be registered for gross payments, we have three different ones. So to be registered for gross payments, a subcontractor must satisfy three things. The first one is the business test, the construction turnover test, and the compliance test. Excuse me, please. The subcontractor is also subject to an annual review by HMRC to check whether it is still appropriate for it to be registered for gross payments. That is that it still satisfies the three tests. So what is trying to say is that for a subcontractor to be registered as as to register for gross payment with HMRC, they need to satisfy 3 tests. The 3 tests are, the first one is the business test, the construction turnover test, and the compliance test. So, I mean, this if you now want to like know more about these different tests, then you can now like decide to read further, on it. So then the subcontractor also, because of it's like a test that is being done to determine the whether it qualifies for gross payment or not, then it means it needs to be reviewed. So this test is being reviewed on an annual basis by HMRC to determine whether that particular subcontractor is still appropriate for what to be registered for gross payments. If not, then you'll have to take him to probably any of the two, which is the after deduction or whether it's registered or not. I don't know if that's clear. So that's why in the other parts where we mentioned that it is the responsibility of the contractor, to determine the payment status, to verify the payment status or the registration status of the subcontractor, because he needs to know this for the purpose of what, making payments to the subcontractor. Okay, so this part says that if the subcontractor is paid net of 20% or 30%, then the withholding is applied to the labor element only, excluding cost of materials, any VAT. So, in terms of the deductions, you know, the the tax would usually be applied on the parts, on just the labor, the parts, the cost that has to do with the labor cost. Let me put it that way. So you need to exclude the cost of materials and the other ones, and the part that relates with VAT rather, in case the invoice relates to VAT. So we just focus on the part that has to do with the labor cost only. And so with the returns, with the CIS returns and payment of tax, so the contractor would have deducted the payments from the subcontractors pay. So the contractor must pay monthly, must make the payment on a monthly basis to HMRC. Any deduction that he has made from the subcontractors payments, he needs to remit it to HMRC in accordance with the CIS rules. Either on the 19th day of the calendar month, in which the relevant in calendar month in which the relevant tax month ends, or if paying electronically by the 22nd day of the month. So if oh, what happened?
Just to let you know, so that in case he wants to join again, you keep an eye.
Yeah, good. I just wanted, okay, I probably should be trying to join
Yeah.
back now. So I mean, it's good because at least I think to understand she has an understanding of the construction industry. So let me just move on because I just want to
Yes,
be
you do.
very fast so I can, yeah. Like I said, that so I'm trying to just explain in terms of making the returns to HMRC. So definitely, of course, if the contractor is deducting some amounts in terms of tax and national insurance from the payments that is being made to the subcontractor, they need to be remitting these amounts to HMRC on a monthly basis. And I've also included the deadlines here in terms of it has to be on the 19th day of the calendar month, or if the payment is being made electronically, then by the 22nd day of the month. And it's the same thing. Sorry, hold on, please. Just want to try and summarize. I don't want to read everything. Okay, now so in terms of the returns as well, it's the contractor, right, at any point in time does not have to stop making returns to HMRC, unless that contractor have notified the HMRC, ahead of time that it would not be making any payments under the CIS, under the construction industry scheme for the next 6 months. Because at times we can have an employer that is, he belongs to the is operating under the CIS, that's the construction industry scheme. They're operating under the CIS at the same time is also operating, like, he also have the regular employees that he reports, their taxes to HMRC via the normal payee system. So if such an employer, um as like is as known ahead of time that he would not be making any payments under the CIS system, probably there's no be is not engaging in any work for that period, or due to break, or could be due to break in the work or anything, then he needs to like have informed HMRC ahead of time that he would not be making payments um under that scheme for the next 6 months. And also, I think the important point I wanted to mention is that yeah, so a monthly return is due, from the contractor, even if only gross payments are made. So if you are a contractor and you probably it's only, there are different payment status for the subcontractor. It can either be gross and deduction. So if probably for that period the only payment that was made is gross, then no deduction was made from the subcontractor payments, you still need to make a returns. You still need to make a monthly return in terms of just reporting that, oh, okay, even if it's reporting zero, that, oh, nothing was deducted, but at least report the gross payments. Let's HMRC know that this is what you paid them, although you didn't deduct and you don't have any amount to. So you don't have any amount to remit, but at least you need to what you need to report. You need to submit the CIS returns on a monthly basis. And now CIS payroll. I think I'm fine with this one now. Yeah. Just need to read it up really. Um oh, good. Whatsoever, I want to finish it. So the CIS payroll, like I mentioned this from the beginning that, well, sorry, I'm just a bit concerned about the from now. Let me just quickly um check her and see what's happening. Hmm. Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, we can hear you.
because I would expect that she would have, you know, joined back, but um let's just. Oh, okay. Sorry. I think what I should just do is let me just complete this part so we can go for a break. So that I will not. I'll call her during the break. Yeah. So for the CIS payroll, it's just the way we have the our normal payroll that's being run through the payee system. Then for the construction industry scheme, they have their own payroll. It's not the same thing with the payee. So the CIS payroll refers to the process of payments from contractors to subcontractors under the scheme. Now, the CIS payroll can be done in-house by a contractor, or it can be outsourced, and it can be outsourced to the company that specializes in construction, that specialize in that industry, that specialize in the payroll, not in construction, that specialize in the construction industry scheme payroll. And so for the contractors that pay their own subcontractors, you know, they process the payments at the same time with the rest of the payroll. So now what this trying to say is that if you have a situation whereby I think I used the example earlier. Like if you have a situation whereby for a company, they have aside the subcontractors, they have other employees that they pay. So they can decide to process their payments at the same time. That okay, if they have their own pay dates, for instance, if they pay all their employees like let's say 20th of every month, so they can decide to pay their their regular employees and their subcontractors at the same time. But of course, they will use different payroll for to process the payments. So any deductions under the CIS are made to HMRC, yeah, and so it's possible for an employer to register with payee and also register as a what, as a contractor under the CIS. So it's possible for you to have an employer that has a dual, payroll system, at least the payee and the CIS payroll system in the same words, in the same organization. And but the employer has to ensure that is following the different requirements for each system. Is ensuring that it's abiding by different requirements in terms of running the payroll. That's why usually when it comes to CIS, most companies would want to outsource it to they want to outsource it to companies that specialize in that, because at times it could there are a lot of it's kind of technical. There are a lot of processes that are involved, of which someone that of which a payroll administrator that is just trained to what to that is just trained on the pay system just to run the usual payroll via the pay system might not really know how to might not have that expertise to handle such payroll. So some companies can decide to if you have a company that's been operating pay system before and now later on registered them under the CIS scheme, the company can decide to train their existing employee on how to use the CIS payroll, right? And at the same time, they can try to outsource it. It just depends on the choice that the company makes. Some company might not really want to overstretch their resources, or might not really want to burden the existing department too much, because might not really want to, in terms of looking at the workload, so that to avoid situations whereby there will be maybe mistakes or mix up, they can decide to outsource. But if they have the capacity, they have enough people to train to take on that new payroll system, then they can also do that. So that's basically. So I think we can just, yeah. I think I've touched everything. I've touched everything under the construction industry. We just need to ensure we read the material to understand it. So we'll go for a 15 minutes break, and when we come back, we'll we'll discuss the rest. Yeah. Okay. All right. So see you
See,
in the next 10 minutes.
15 minutes.
That's
Okay.
12:16. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
All
Thanks.
right. Thank you.
Well,
I'm so sorry.
yeah, I was even trying to see if I could reach you now. I was just trying to reach you. Yeah. What happened?
My computer went off.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. So we just went on break like about just like a minute ago. So we're back by 12:16. Um, uh, though I was even telling the class that during the break I'll contact you, and that I feel I think you have an understanding of this construction industry scheme to an extent. So I said we should move on, and maybe when you join, then you just kind of catch up. So it's still what I've been discussing before. But I think the bit that I just had it was the returns, this CIS returns, in terms of how when or how regular the contractor return or reports to the HMRC, when they submit their returns. So if you just read this part, it's self-explanatory. I already put all the information there. Then the last part that I mentioned is this CIS payroll. They have their own payroll system. It's not the usual payee system. So some of them will decide to outsource it to the company that specialize in CIS payroll. Some of them can decide to train if it's a company that has been operating under payee system before and now register under the CIS. They can decide to train their current employee, that are running the payroll by payee, and decide to train them. Some of them train them on how to operate the CIS payroll, so they can take on the role, or we can decide to outsource it. So a company can have a dual payroll system. You can have the payee and the CIS. So payee is for the regular, for regular employees. CIS is for the, for those, for the subcontractors. Yeah. So that's why I just explained basically. So when we come back after the break, we'll continue from here. So, yeah. We'll be back by 12:16.
All right, thank you. Let's talk to you later. Bye.
Okay, yeah, bye. Hi.
Hello.
Okay, yeah. So we continue from so I believe you're all aware of topic.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so what we'll just be looking at here is looking at how employers benefit, how it's how it is being taxed, how it's being taxed and reported to so benefits are benefits in kind that benefits that employees or directors receive from the employment. They are not usually included as part of their salaries or part of wages. So sometimes called perks or fringe benefits. And it could be in form of company mobile phone, childcare, accommodation, or private medical insurance. Then um, because company pay these benefits, company can actually pay these benefits in form of at times it could be in form of there are some that give benefit in form of cash, but now it could be in kind as well. And these benefits are given directly to the employee. It's not like it's added to their salary and the like. So that way, HMRC is not because HMRC as the rule with HMRC is that for all earnings, all employees needs to pay taxes on all earnings that they get from their employers. So, in order for government to ensure that all employees are actually making the right actually paying the right taxes on any benefits they receive, they kind of come up with different laws or ways by which these benefits can be by which the tax from these benefits can be reported to the government. So So if you look at this second paragraph, it says because the company pays for benefits with tax earnings, at least the benefits they pay to their employees is in such a way that they have not been taxed initially. They just give it to them like fully without being taxed. So and it provides it means is a kind of addition to the salary in which they receive. So HMRC effectively sees this as a kind of an additional like a rise in their pay without being taxed. So in order for HMRC to claim to claim tax on the additional pay which is in form of a benefit to the employee, then HMRC has set out two options. There is the first one is the one that has been in existence for a while, and that's the P11D form, and the second one is called benefits payrolling. That one is the new one, and let's look at the first one actually. So to reclaim the additional tax, HMRC requires what one or of two options. So you can either use the first option or the second option. Now, the first option is that employers can take the tax. I mean the tax that it does from their employees. They can actually be reported through the payroll, and the alternative is to use a P1ID form. So now the P11D form, is a form that's submitted to HMRC by a company that provides benefits to employees, right? That provide benefits in kind to employees. We need to fill and submit the P11D. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Select.
Yes.
I think I need to learn how to use this. There's supposed to be this option to use a kind of maybe a marker or the board, so I can kind of show you some things. Like if I want to point at anything, that will be. I will check that later. I don't know if I can do that. Okay, now, like I was saying, the P11D form. Can you see my cursor? The arrow.
No.
Or can you see anything like P11D form on the slide?
Yeah, it's at the top. We can
No,
see
we
there's a
can't see the
P11.
form. It's
So
only the
it's, oh no
slide.
no, I mean the sorry, I mean the
Slide.
not like the form the way it is, but I mean written out. Can you see me like? Can you see any form of writing like that has to do a P11D form?
It says underneath the slide.
Okay,
A P11
okay. So if
form.
you look at the form, if you look at paragraph 5 or 4, sorry, paragraph 4, yeah. So a P11D form is a form that is submitted to HMRC by a company providing benefits in kind to his employees or to his staff. So this form is used to report the amount of the benefit that is taxable. That is taxable at the end of the tax year. So if a company has some benefits that it has given to its employees, for at the end of the tax year, the company would fill a form called P11D form, and this form, will in this form, the company will report the taxable value, of all the benefits that it has given to its employee. It's going to report the amount, the taxable value on that form, submit to the HMRC at the end of the tax year. So this has been the usual way of doing it, right from time. But there's now a new method that can also be adopted by companies that gives benefits, which is they can actually decide to report that taxable and they can decide to report the taxable part of the benefits or report the benefits through the payroll system. So that is optional. The company can decide to actually do that by the payroll. So So employees not usually need to fill out for employees they don't have to fill that form. Just the employer that needs to fill out the form, right? But for a freelancer or a contractor that arranges like a benefit and arranges benefits by his company or that gives out benefits, and that person, since that person is fine, the person is self-employed, but it's also an employer at the same time. Then such a person also needs to what? That person is in the capacity of employer. That person will also need to fill out the P11D form as part of the self-assessment tax return. Now, this is just a difference. For a company, for the normal employer, they have the employees that it gives that benefits to. So if you at the end of the tax year, he reports these benefits, the taxable part of the benefits to the government through the P11D form. Now, but for someone that is a freelancer or a contractor that also gives out benefits by his company, through his company, then he's not exempted because he's technically an employer, so he's not exempted. So such a person will also needs to fill that same form, and submit this as part of as part of the self-assessment tax return. So when he's doing his own self-assessment tax return, he needs to submit this form as well. And then so now I mentioned that the usual way which it has been done is to fill the P11D form. Later on, April 2016, Martin introduced the system of reporting these benefits, the taxable benefits by payroll. So not all benefits are taxable but for any benefits that a company is giving out to its employees that is taxable, then it needs to be reported. So there's now the option as from April 2016. There's now the option to report benefits through the payroll. So it's actually a voluntary process if the employer is interested in doing that or not. So okay, let me just read out this part. So this is where is it? Okay, so this is an entirely voluntary process which allows an employer to add the cash equivalent of the benefits, the nominal adjustment to the employee's taxable pay processed through the payee. Once the value of the benefit is included in their taxable pay, the tax for the employee is calculated, collected, and paid on the benefits in real time through the tax year. So now with the payroll, the way it works is that if the gross income for a particular employee is 50,000, and there are other benefits, benefits in kind. So now the benefits in the employer will need to get the value of the benefits in kind. So when the employer gets the value of the benefits in kind, for instance, it could be any form of allowance, it could be private insurance and the like. So once you get the benefit of that allowance, if the benefit is like 10,000, for instance, so you add the 10,000 to the gross, which is the gross is 50. The cash equivalent of the benefits is 10. So 10 plus 50 is 60,000. So 60,000 is what will be reported as the taxable pay. But with taxable pay, there are some things you need to consider. Okay, maybe after you've removed you'd have removed the pension and some other pre-tax deductions that need to be done. So whatever is now left is going to be the taxable pay. So what I'm trying to explain here is that with the benefits in kind, which will be what's processed through the payroll, the employer will need to get the cash equivalent, add this to the gross, then total amounts that will now be reported on the payroll through the payee system. So it should just be processed normally on the payroll via the payee system, and that way the benefit will get taxed through that system. And so if an employer chooses not to payroll all the benefits, that is, if an employer decides not to report the benefits to HMRC by the payroll, then because there are different benefits. Companies give different benefits to their employee. Some companies can decide that, some of these benefits I want to report through the payroll. Some of these benefits I will not report through the payroll. I'll report via the P11D form. So it's very important for the employer to know that for any benefit that he has decided not to report by the payroll, then compulsorily he needs to fill the P11D form to report the other benefits that are left that have not been reported by the payroll. And okay, so then if an employer chooses to kind of report company car benefits, right? But if an employer chooses to report company car benefits by the payroll, then the employer does not need to submit the P46 form unless the car benefit is not being payroled. So what is that say that? So usually for company car benefits, because it has its own way of actually reporting. The different way of reporting company car benefits to HMRC. So this benefit is reported by the P46 form. So, but for a company, a company that wants to report these benefits by the payroll, as long as this company decides that, okay, this car benefits are reported by the payroll, then the company does not need to submit that P46 form. And now, so looking at the class 1 national insurance as it relates to benefits in kind. I think I mentioned, let me see, my previous slide that is it, can you use okay, right. So the thing is that benefits are also earnings. So just the way our earnings are subject to NI and tax, NI and PE, that's just the way the benefits will be subject to NI and PE. So definitely, if the benefit is being reported by the payroll, it's automatically, because it's summed up with the gross, automatically it's also subject to what NI and PE. And I mentioned in one of the previous classes that that benefits would also be subject to what NI and PE. So it's important for us to take note of that. So now, when we did this classes of national insurance, we said the class 1 belongs to the for the class 1 national insurance. Yeah, I mean it's the category that that most employee falls under. So they pay, most employee pays the national insurance by the class 1. Then we have the other classes that has to do with the voluntary, NI. Then the one that has to do with those that are submitting their returns by self-assessment, self-employed. Then we have for the employer, we have the class 1A or B for the one that is, I mean, let's just say class 1A. That's the one that is kind of common. So the class 1A, the employer falls under the category of class 1A. So they fall under the category of class 1A. So now, this class 1A national insurance contribution is what we want to look at now as it relates to the benefits in kind. So an employer will still need to prepare a P11D form to pay its employer's class 1 national insurance on relevant benefits, whether it is payrolling its benefits or reporting this through the P11D form. Now, like I mentioned, that if an employer decides to report the benefits in kind by the payroll, then it means the employer will not have to fill the P11D form that would usually have been filled, right? But with the employer's national insurance, so the employee pays their own national insurance, and the employer also pays their own national insurance. So with the employer's national insurance, they will still need to submit the usual form that is being submitted, which is the P11D B. So the P11, so the ordinary P11D is the one that is used to report the benefits for employee, that is used to report the benefit. But for the purpose of national insurance, that will need to be paid on the benefit. So not to confuse us, because we'll be wondering that why is the employer filling this P11DB form again after they are payrolling the benefits. Now the reason is because if you look at the normal payee system, for any earnings, like for the usual earnings, right? Payee will be deducted. That is, payee is paid by the employee. Payee will be deducted. NI will be deducted. That's NI, employee NI will be deducted on the earnings. So 3 things are deducted from earnings in terms of tax. In terms of tax that is paid to HMRC. Not just 3 things actually, but the regular ones. We still have this deduction like student loan and the likes. But the ones that are compulsory, that like everybody needs to pay as long as they've reached that particular threshold. As long as they are earning up to 12.5. Now, the compulsory deductions are what? The employee NI, the payee, and the employer, and the the employer NI. So employer also pays NI, whether the employee is paying tax or not. The employer still needs to pay the NI. So employer NI is also paid on earnings. Now, so because of employer NI is also paid on earnings, it means that it will be paid on benefits as well, because benefits is also earnings. So now, if the employer decides to report the benefits by payroll, they will still need to submit P11DB form for the purpose of reporting their own national insurance on the employee's earnings. And okay, so in terms of payrolling benefits, there are some benefits that can't be payrolled, like living accommodation, and interest-free or low interest loans. So these two things cannot be reported by the payroll. These two benefits will still need to be reported using the P11D form. So even if you are payrolling, even if a company is reporting all the other benefits. Hello.
I can hear you.
Hello, we can hear you.
Oh. Okay. But I'm surprised because usually when this mic is not close to my mouth, you won't hear what I'm saying. But as long as you've been hearing me clearly, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
good. Yeah, good. I just looked at my video now and I was like, oh my God, this thing is not there. And I was like, oh, I've been talking to myself. Is it that everybody's not there or what? All right, that's good too. Like I was saying that so the exception to the payrolling benefits is that some benefits cannot be reported by payroll. They will still need to be reported by the usual method of reporting, which is to fill the P11D form. So how to register for like if a company wants to register to be reporting their the benefits by the payroll. This is just like a brief summary on how to go about it. I just like read it out like very fast. Before contacting the HMRC, so the first thing is that the employer needs to contact the software. You know that of course each employer have the different softwares they use. Some people use Sage, some people use QuickBooks, some people use like different types of payroll software. So now the first thing is that the employer needs to contact the software provider, to ask or to check if the payroll software will allow the employer to payroll benefits, right? So once the employer has confirmed this, that the payroll software is suitable, then they can now register with HMRC, to payroll their benefits, to payroll their benefits. And let me see what I was saying. So this part is just trying to talk about how to go about it online, because in this service you can select which group of benefits you want to payroll. So online there's the payroll benefits like online, and you can just go online and select the particular benefits you want to have, or you want to have on your payroll. And the HMRC system, it automatically identify all the employees who the company has actually registered. And there's a way, when the employer reports the benefits by the payroll to the HMRC, then there's a way HMRC adjusts the tax code, because that way you've increased the employees' earnings, and the tax code will be adjusted with the benefits. The other part will just be something that you just need to read up. Those are the important things there. So another thing again is to be aware of the optional remuneration arrangements. It's also called salary sacrifice. So the abbreviation is OPRA. So it's also called what? Salary sacrifice. So the OPRA is like a situation whereby an employee gives up the right to an amount of earnings in return for a non-cash benefit. So, for instance, you can have an employee. For instance, it could be that a company wants to give a benefit to an employee. A company wants to give a benefit to an employee, and it says, okay, you will have to give up an amount of money, an amount of a salary for these benefits. That's what is referred to as optional remuneration arrangement. Is also known as salary sacrifice. So it's optional to the employee. It's not like he's being forced to do it or so. Like there are some that's the company's policy, that this is the benefits they give to them. They don't tell them to to sacrifice their salary in returns. They give them the benefits, like willingly without requesting for anything in return. But for this one, is a situation whereby the employee will need to give up give up part of his salary. So from 6th of April 2017, and if an employer set up a new OPRA, then it will need to work out the value of the non-cash benefits by using the higher of the amount of the salary given up and earnings charge under the normal benefits in kind rules. Now, what this is trying to say is from 6th of April. So if an employer is kind of maybe is operating this OPRA system, and they have some employees that are doing like under this scheme. Let me put it that way. So for example, if you have an employee now that is, I think I have an example here. Let me see. Okay, when we get there, let's go back. Let me jump. I will explain the example in detail when I get there. So we have rules. We have rules under this that guides this OPRA, but this new rule, right, does not apply to the following situations. So it does not apply to payments into pension scheme, employer provided pensions advice, child care vouchers, workplace nurseries, and employer contracted child care, cycle to work scheme, cars with CO2 emissions of 75 gram per kilometer or less. Now, so it means that for these following examples that has been highlighted here, it's this particular rule, that's the optional remuneration arrangements, does not actually apply to this. So it means that an employee cannot tell an employee cannot say, oh, I'm going to give up my salary just for any of these benefits, because of course all these benefits are things that are like some of the employers are also expected to give to their employees. It's not like it's compulsory, fine, but at least with the pensions, with the pension is actually compulsory. But some of it are not actually compulsory. But they are not. This rule does not actually apply to any of this. So an employee can decide to give up his salary for any other kind of non-cash benefits, but not aside from any of these ones that has been highlighted here. And so if you look at the example, an example of what I said, now this example is just going to explain these statements. These statements that says that where is it? Yeah, that from April 2017, if an employer sets up a new OPRA, it will need to work out the value of the non-cash benefits. The value of the non-cash benefits, because the employer is giving a non-cash benefit to the employee, and the employee in return is giving up a part of his salary. So the employer will need to work out the value of the non-cash benefits by using the higher of the amount of the salary given up. The higher of the amount of the salary given up and earnings charge under the normal benefits in kind rules. So I'll just use an example to explain what I'm trying to say there. An example is that so Peter starts a new job on 10th of April 2018 and gives up part of his pay in return for medical benefits cover. The cost to the employee the cost to the employer, that is the cost of providing that benefits, right, to that employee. The cost of providing that benefits to the employee, the cost of it to that employer is £500. But the employer told Peter to give up £600 salary in exchange for the benefits. Now, if you can see, Peter is giving up more salary for that benefits, but that benefits to the employer cost what? 500. So now the amount that will be what? The amount forgone on the side of forgone by the employee is what? 600. So if the employee wants to report this amount, because it's also a benefit, right? It's a benefit that the company has given to the to the to the employee. The company has given these benefits to the employee, but the employee in return has given up his cash. So it means that the gross income is going to be less net of that benefits. But the employer needs to report these benefits on the payroll. So if the employer is going to report the benefits to the payroll on the payroll, how much will the employer report? That's what this OPRA scheme is trying to talk about, the salary sacrifice. How much is the employer going to report? The employer is going to report the higher of the cost of that benefit to that employer and the amount that was given up by the employee. So in this situation, this example, the employer has given up 600 and the cost to the employer is 500. So for the purpose of what? Tax. For the purpose of this amount, for the purpose of tax, let me put it that way, what the employer will report on the payroll is what? £600, which is the amount that the employer has given up and not the amount and not the cost to the employer. Is that clear? Hi.
Yes, it's all. It's clear.
Is that clear, Olufumlayo?
Yes.
Grace.
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay. So this last part is just saying that so the taxable amount, that is this amount, that 600, right, must also be included in the P60 at the end of the tax year as part of the total taxable pay. So it means in addition to every other amount that be reported as taxable pay, that benefit amount must also be reported, both on the P60 and P45. So the P60 is just like a document that is given to all employees, like each employees at the end of the tax year. At the end of tax year, definitely, for those that have been working, you would have received P60 at some point in time where you work at the end of the tax year, right? Or has anyone not received P60 before?
We have.
Okay, so
So
now this part is by the time, okay, yeah, it should be on the material. I'll upload it later. I want you to visit it and kind of just make your own research and summarize whatever you just try and summarize the information you have. It's really important. I will let us know when we'll be discussing it. It could be next class. I could call us to discuss it, or let me just put it straight to you so that I won't give a shocker. I won't give you a shocker next class. So in next class, I want us to discuss this briefly. So let's just try and go through it. I mean, just to read it and have understanding, because there are a lot of information, on this website. There are a lot of information as it relates to principles of benefits in kind. So please let's follow this link, and we'll read up what we can see on the link and summarize. In the next class, we'll discuss it individually. Like everybody, that's the first thing we'll do in the class before we move on to the next thing. How many things? What else? How many? Well, I'm in a rush to finish. So and I'm not supposed to be rushing to complete this thing, but I just want it to be that. Okay, so looking at the next one now, this is principles of court orders in in UK. As an employer, we can receive a court order, telling us to deduct some amount of money from the employee's wages. This order could be to pay off unpaid maintenance payments or a high court judgment. So like for instance, if someone made a court action against another person, that the person is supposed to pay him, that the person is owing him money and is to pay a debt, but the person refused to attend to such court judgment, or did not even or ignored it, or did not go for it, then in that situation the courts can send an order to the employer, like to the employer of that person, to be deducting some amount of money from the employee's salary. So then let's leave this part. Now the employer and the employee, in a situation whereby a court wants to give an order to to an employer, So the court will send a form of like, it's called an attachment of earnings order, AEO. It will send this to both the employer and the employee. And after the employer has received this order, then the employer needs to start making deductions from the employee's pay from the next pay date. After he has received that order, the next pay date after he received the court order, then he needs to start deducting this amount, the amount the court has instructed the employee to deduct, unless it's within the next 7 days. So now the court order will tell the employee how much will tell the employer how much is to deduct from the it will tell the employer how much the employee is owing. Then it will then also there are two types of order. There's priority order and non-priority order. So if the order that the court sends is a priority order, okay. And another thing to also notice that there are times that when they send the order, it might not be indicated that the order is a priority order. So in a situation whereby it's not indicated that the order is a priority order, then it means it's a non-priority order. So if you see if on the court order is indicated that it is a priority order, fine, it is, treat it as such. But if it is not indicated, then treat it otherwise, meaning that it's not a priority order. So now the court order, right? What the court order would usually contain, or the information it usually give to the employee is that it will tell the employer how much the employee owes. Then secondly, it would indicate if it is a priority order or not. And also it will also indicate how much the employee will need to take from the wages, from the employee wages. So this is usually called the normal deduction rate, NDR, right? Normal deduction rate, NDR. And the fourth one is that the minimum, the court order will also tell the employee the minimum amount the minimum amount the employee will still have to take home. Right now, note the third one says that the court order will tell the employer how much it has to deduct from the employee's wages. Now, this is referred to as the normal deduction rate. Now, also the court order will indicate the minimum amount that the employee still have to take home. That is, irrespective of whatever they'll be deducting, there will be a minimum amount that the employee needs to take home, and this will also be indicated in the court order. So this is called protected earnings rate, PER. Then note that you cannot the employer cannot deduct. So just know that whenever I'm saying employer, I'm referring to, like, okay, you as a payroll administrator, because of course employer is just the company, but they've employed you to be in charge of anything that has to do with payroll. So both the regulatory aspect and the reporting as well. So okay now. So notes that an employer cannot make the normal deduction. The normal deduction is the NDR that we've talked about here. So the employer cannot make the normal deduction if it would take the employee below the protected earnings rate. So two things. You would have informed the normal deduction rate that this is normal, this is the rates at which you need to be deducting on either on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. It would have been indicated. But in a situation whereby when you deduct this amount of money, then at the same time the protected earnings rate will also be what will be stated. But in a situation whereby after the employer has deducted the normal deduction, you understand, and is taking that employee, is taking his wages below the protected earnings rate. That is, if the protected earnings rate, for instance, is say £100 per week, by the time he has done all the deduction, is taking the wages is now 90. So that is already below the protected earnings rate. In that situation, the employer cannot do the normal deduction. So then the next one also is that the court order will tell the employee how often the payments have to be made, either to be made weekly or monthly. So, and in a situation whereby the court order indicates how often the payments need to be made, either weekly or monthly. So if it could be that the complaint pays, if the complaint pay date is like on a monthly basis, you understand, then the complaint can the complaint can actually write, to the courts to inform them, to help to make the adjustments such that the deduction can be made on a monthly basis. But with that, there's also some rules that guide it. Let me see if I have that here. Okay, so let's just move on for now. So as an employer, an employer will get a document from the courts, which is the court order, telling informing the employee or instructing the employee to make deductions from the employee's pay. And the employer will need to work out how much we'll have to deduct each time an employee is paid, because the way if you look at what I explained here, that the court order will only state the rates. The court order will state how much the employee is owing. You understand? But they might not really say this is the amount we need to be deducting. It might not be specific, but they will just give some rates. Then it's now left to the employee to now work it out based on the earnings of the employee. So now, then also it's important for the employer to know that the moment this letter has been sent or this document has been sent, then he needs to start making that payment. Because if not, the employer and the employee can be fined for not making the payments. And okay, now, so looking at the protected earnings that I mentioned earlier, that for the protected earnings, the deduction, the amounts to be deducted from the employee's salary should be in such a way that it won't take him below the protected earnings. So now, if the protected earnings rates is if the protected earnings rate is too high, right? Then if the protected earnings rate is too high, such that the employer, will never be able to make deductions. For instance, if the employee earns about 200 per week, if the employee earns about 200 per week, and the protected earnings rate after it has been applied is in such a way that it's probably is even above what the employee earns in a week, or is almost the same thing. So it's in the amount that is being arrived at is in such a way that nothing can be deducted, because if the order says that, okay, this is how much you'll be deducting, but at the same time it should be deducted in such a way that the employee should not go beyond this amount. It should still have this amount to be taken home. And if the amount the amount that is being earned by the employee is such a way that, after considering the protected earnings, they will not even be able to make deductions from from a salary, then in that situation, the employer in that situation the employer will write to both the centralized attachments of earnings payments, that's the CAPS office, and the courts who issues the order. Now, if that's let me see. Sorry, this is past that I'm supposed to have explained first. Oh, okay, yeah. So in terms of the court order, right? So if a court order has been made now, for instance, the employer, can ask the court to actually change it. So for example, like I said, I think I mentioned this earlier, that if the order that was given, if in the court order is stated that the amount should be made weekly, or monthly, but the employer prefers to make it monthly because that's how he pays the employee. So then the employer can actually, write to them to change it. But if this order was made if the order was actually made by the magistrate courts, then it is the employee, that will have to ask the court to change it, right? So this is just an information for us to just like have, when I just like put it there. I feel okay, it's just kind of just for us to be aware. So if it is the county court, it's also known as the high court. If it's the high court that made the order, that made that order for deduction from the employee salary, then the employer himself can decide to write or can decide to request for a change. But if the order was made by the magistrate court, then the employee will need to ask the court to change it, and not the employer. So then for the protected earnings, if the protected earnings rate is too high, in such a way that the employer will never be able to make any deductions, then the employer will need to write to both the centralized attachment of earning payments office and the court order who issues that order. So then also there are two types of orders. We have the priority and the non-priority orders. So, and the way in which the deductions is being calculated under these two different orders are different. So there are different ways of making the calculation. And okay, so now for if we look at priority order, so it's mostly used for maintenance payments or fines. So if someone needs to make payments that has to relate with that has to do with maintenance, or if there's any fine, if the employer has been fined, then that falls on that priority. So in that situation, so we are trying to look at how deductions are being done in the two situations. Now, so under the priority order, if an employer cannot make the full deduction, right, then the employer can carry, if in a particular period the employer cannot make the full deduction, then the employer can carry the unpaid difference over to the next payday. Or for non-priority like civil debts, in terms of the deduction, the employer do not carry the unpaid difference over to the next period. So this is just trying to say that, okay, for the order that falls under priority, the one that are actually of priority, the employer can continue to carry over the unpaid difference. So if in a particular period you're supposed to pay so percentage or the person's salary, or you're supposed to pay so amount, and you're unable to like complete that payment in that particular pay period, that amount, that difference, or that amount that was unpaid in that period can be carried over to the next pay period, and you continue to carry it over like that way until the employer has finished paying the fine. Okay, so then also if an employee have more than one debt, have more than one order rather, so if there are two court orders on behalf of just one particular employee, then the employer will need to consider the order of priority. So if your employee has more than one debt, you have to deduct the priority orders first. So for instance, maybe there are four. It might not be possible, because I don't know. It's just funny, but if an employee has like about four orders, so if two are priority orders, the other two are non-priority orders, irrespective of the timing that the company received the orders, they need to what? They need to deduct, based on they need to make deductions from the employee's salary based on the priority orders first. So once they are done with the priority orders, they can now start looking at the non-priority orders in that order. Yeah. All right. So then this last part is just saying that a company can apply, to combine two or more non-priority orders into a single order, and this is called a consolidated attachment of earnings order. So this okay, so this last part, so that's one. So this relevant sources of guidance actually is I'll just I've always been providing further links, so you can just make use of that link to expand your knowledge and learn more. I will still provide you with more so that you can have more like relevant sources to refer to in case you need more guidance on some of the things that we've done so far. Then with gender pay gap reporting, and how it affects the payroll function. This last part I I was supposed to like get the material, but I haven't done this. But I'll just explain it. I'll explain it briefly, and when I want to send the updated material to you, I'm going to include the explanation there on the material. But I don't have it here on my slide. But what is gender pay gap reporting is trying to say is that for companies at the end of when they are when company at the end of the company's financial year, when they are doing their reporting, they would need to also report this gender pay gap. So that's why it's called gender pay gap reporting. They need to also like report anything that has to do with was gender pay. So how it is being done basically is in the company we look at the earnings of all the male employees. So the earnings of all the employees, you look at the average earnings. So meaning that you take the earnings of each of if you have like about 50, 100 male employees, for instance, the earnings of each of them from the top level to the low level, from the management level to the operational level and likes, you take all their earnings, then you get the average per worker. Then same thing with female, total earnings earned by all the female in the company, and you get the average. Now, the difference between the average, because there'll definitely be a difference, and the difference will be reported, and the company will need to look at it. What constitutes this difference? I mean, what exactly led to this difference? Let's see. So it could be, I mean, if after getting the average of both, if that of the male is more than the female, for instance, as an example, if it is more than the female, and if the gap is much, so we need to look at it. Okay, so what exactly is responsible for this? It could be two things. It could be that it could be that there are more male workers in that organization than female workers, and that's why the difference is more. That's why the gap is there. Or it could be that you know when I say that there are more male workers than the female workers, that's in terms of the numbers of the employees. But the in terms of the pay, in terms of the amount of salary that is being paid actually. So it could also be that there are more male workers at the top level, and they are getting more pay. You understand? Because it's possible that you have more females, but you now have more male at the top, at the management level. Because of course, the higher the role or the higher the level, then the higher the pay. So the difference could be caused by two things. Either there are more male workers, or there are more male workers at the top. So in that situation, because the essence of this report is for the is like for the company to have, to kind of also work on closing that gender gap. So they use this as a form of feedback and see as a form of improvement. Oh, okay, now this means there's a gap. So what can be done? So they need to now make that would I say research, or look inward and see what exactly is causing it, to see what they can put in place and how they can close that gap. So that's just the essence of this reporting and how it affects the payroll function. So at this point, that brings us to the end of payroll core. So happy. I can't even wait for people to clap for me. I'll clap for myself.
We're clapping for you.
I'll clap for myself.
That was a roller coaster, a race.
Professor.
You said?
I said I clap for you, Professor.
I
If
clap
you
for you too.
if you observe that this last part, I'm just rushing this. Usually I might take my time. I realize that this way I've taken my time too much. I said this time I must not take this topic to the next class. No, I don't want to.
But it's interesting though because the court order you discussed reminded me of what I was doing as income officer. Getting court order from magistrate court, county court, to get arrears in rents.
Okay, yeah,
It's a good example.
that's good. Yeah, and in fact, I don't know. Maybe that will be the next class. Then we can't do the quiz again because I know we are all tired and we can't
Ah,
even. I
no,
know
it's after one.
it's already after. Okay, exactly. In fact, it's even already after one. Can you imagine?
It's almost quarter
Yeah.
past one.
No quiz,
Look
no.
at if you can see my screen. Can you see Slido? Or you
No,
can't see?
No, we
Eh?
can't see your screen.
Oh, we
no.
can't see it. Okay.
Just like very
I'd already
slide,
set it up. I'd already set it up here, but
Uh,
Sorry,
we
slide.
can't. Yeah.
slide
So,
there.
but it's fine. It's fine. So it means that in the next class, because in the next class now we'll be moving to pension, and we've done a lot of things in payroll core. So I think that's even good to give me enough time to set enough questions because I didn't have time to set, I only just did 20
Well done.
questions. I didn't
Well,
have time to set questions. I only set based on the one we did and based on benefits in kind. So now the ones that I've taught you today now, I'll take my time to set more questions on it.
well
So this
done.
time around in the next class, that's the first thing we do. So I mean, it's serious. I mean, to me, I just feel it's a way of helping you. It's a way of reminding you of
Eh?
everything we've done. Because personally, I wouldn't like the idea of us waiting till when the exam is closed before you now start. You would have forgotten some of all these things. But when you engage in activities like this, it's fun. You're like, oh, you're trying. It's like kind of a competition. You're trying to read and ensure that you perform well. It makes you to remember, all these things that we've done. So go through the previous quiz, then go through the material. This material from the beginning to the end. I will send you. So once I send the updated one now, you can leave out the other one and use this updated one. This one will have everything from the beginning to the end. You know.
mm.
But take note, I sent for business and customer
Yeah.
awareness. That is there. Then I sent for payroll core part one. Now payroll core part one, yes, you use that. I sent payroll core part two as well. I will send another
Mm.
updated payroll core part two. So you can use the updated payroll core part two instead of the one I sent attached last week. So we need tomorrow because since I'm done with this now, before I can move to pension, I will need to do a test on what we've done so far. So next class is going to be quiz, test and discussion. So if you happen to finish it on time, then the next maybe after break, I can now introduce the pension. But my priority for next class is to have the quiz
Okay.
and
Can I make a
expect
request?
about 40 to 50 questions.
Can I make a request now?
Yeah, sure.
Can you put all the details and materials you want us to go through in a bundle? Please, not minding the fact that you sent it before, so that we'll have it together.
Okay.
Everything in one go,
Okay. No,
from
no,
top
yeah,
to bottom.
no problem. I'll do it
Mm,
from middle to left, from in between everything. I will
everywhere.
put it
From
so
left to
that
right.
I won't get I won't get any excuse in next class that
Exactly.
because
And
we
we
could
will not
not we
give
could
you
not navigate the lane flow when we went into the lane flow when we click on material it was
Madam
taking
K.
us back
Let's
to
us.
business analysis.
God.
When we went there it threw us back to timetable where
You can't say
uh
the system I
so
crush.
I don't want to hear that. When I got there, that was when the system now shut down. It was
Uh,
this and
Madam K.
uh,
My computer is panicking already.
so
Oh,
I mean let's just try. I know that it's not really easy because even me as a woman, goodness. So me,
It
I
is
think
well.
I know that it's just one child I have. We might look like she more color she knew and you can still but I'm combining so many things sincerely. And why I'm doing this now is because I feel that, you know, at at this my young it's not like I'm young, I'm just like maybe very close to 30. I'm not yet 30. But I know that this is when I can still quickly do what I have to do now because I say I want to. Because by the time I start having so many kids now, and there'll
you
be
are very correct.
sorry.
I said you are very correct.
I
This
was
is
calculating.
not
I was looking at when I was looking at how much I'll be paying for childcare if I have two, three child, and I don't have access to benefits at the moment. So I was
You
looking
don't
at
want Grace to eat,
That's Grace business. Our
Abby.
sister
no,
Grace,
no,
that's our
no,
business.
I know, but at the same time, you need to look at,
Grace, Grace, when you
you
kneel
need to
down,
look at
pray
your
about
earnings.
that. Oh,
You need
pray
to look at your earnings,
like
and
that.
I'm not entitled to benefit. So imagine if I'll be paying for one
I
child,
know
three at
it's
the
not
same
easy
time.
at all.
With how much? How
Yeah.
much I've not gotten to high level that maybe I'm earning
Hmm.
what's it called, 5K per month, I be 7K or so.
Even with the
So
benefits, when you have how many children, by the time they take all the tax, what's left?
Honestly.
Exactly.
And you are better off staying at home at that point.
yes.
With
So
one
that's
child,
why.
it's okay.
Hmm?
Mhm.
I said with one child, it's okay to pay childcare, but with two, three,
Mm, mm, mm.
You know,
Not at all.
So
it's
I even feel that with benefit is even still, at least we even still help. You might not really even, at least compared to
so
those that don't even help.
But with benefits, it depends on the hours you're doing.
that's
If you're
it.
doing full time, you won't be entitled to any
at
benefits.
all.
Yes.
Don't
So
even think so.
it's
Yeah,
just
But
that's
when
true.
you're doing part time, that's little money.
Yeah, be happy that you are not even getting the benefit. I tell you, go
that's
and
Are you for it?
that, that's what I was saying. That even with the benefits,
Yeah,
sometimes,
there's no difference because you're gonna reduce your
Oh,
hour.
yeah,
There's no
oh,
point.
okay.
it's just balancing every situation for everybody. At
Yeah, for
what
everybody.
stage, any
Yeah,
stage
you're
that
right. Yeah, you're right, but that's true.
different
Balancing
stage
Hmm.
everything for everybody.
is
That's true. I
just
see. I
make it
see.
and
work.
don't listen to what people say. You don't know what their circumstances are because they
That's
will
it.
not
Yeah, people won't even tell you the
they
truth in
will
this
not tell
country.
you. So don't think, oh,
Hmm.
do this.
Everybody
Just follow your
circumstance.
life as God has designed it.
Yeah,
And I always say to people that go on internet to search for information rather than people because their own circumstances is different from
It's
yours.
different.
yeah,
Very,
And
very
they'll be judging from their own aspects.
so
yeah.
much.
And
So telling you,
most people in this country doesn't want you to excel them. So
yeah,
you have to be very careful.
they will give you wrong information.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Anyway, it is well. God will help us.
So, but it's
Amen.
Yeah,
Amen.
it
That's
is
the
well.
word.
It
Thank you.
will,
It
this is
is
a
well.
country where information